Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Scruffy Movies Podcast. I'm Zach Wallace.
And I'm John Crocker.
And today we got a very interesting one for you guys. Crocker and I were actually just talking about how he has no snow on the ground, but I have snow all over at my house. So we are recording this over a meeting link. And so I don't know if it's going to sound strange or not. Hopefully it doesn't. But that is the reason why, if it does, if it sounds different than normal.
Yeah, and to qualify that a little bit for the folks out there listening, we live probably about 15 miles, 20, 25 minutes apart from one another. So it's kind of strange that you're having a white Christmas over there and I'm not over here, even though it's not exactly Christmas time.
Yeah, we were just expecting kind of like some colder rain, and then last night it was like, oh, well, there's snow on the ground. So but luckily we didn't lose power, so that allows us to record this episode for you guys today. And this episode is going to be about one of probably the best comedy franchises in general, and one that's always brought up around Christmas time, and that is the Vacation series.
And I think a good place to start with that would just be for you to sort of rattle off really quick, not only for myself as a reminder, but for the people listening as well. What are all the movies in that franchise?
So the original movie is National Lampoon's Vacation. That came out, I think, in the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken. It might even have been like late 70s. Man, it's been a while. But that one, of course, starred Chevy Chase. They were taking a family road trip across the country to get to Wally World. Then came European Vacation, where they won a family trip to Europe on a game show. So they all go over there. There's, of course, Christmas Vacation, the third one, which is probably considered the best one. It's the one that I think is probably watched the most, where they don't even really take a vacation. It's just like a break from work and they hang out at their house with their family. That was followed up a few years later by Vegas Vacation, where they, of course, all go to Vegas. Then a lot of people actually don't know, just kind of like casual fans don't know, that movie was actually followed up with a straight to, I believe it was NBC or ABC made-for-TV movie called National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2: Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. Yes, that is the actual name of the movie. It is not the best, but Randy Quaid comes back, and it's one of those movies that's so bad that it's fun to watch. And then just recently, a few years ago, they rebooted the series with a movie starring Ed Helms as Rusty Griswold, and that was just called Vacation.
Okay, so the last two are the two that I haven't seen. I'm really curious to know about Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure, well as just the single Vacation title movie.
Yeah, I remember being like super excited for Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. Like, I made my popcorn and I was like, Mom and Dad, stay out of the room. This is Zach time. I'm going to watch Christmas Vacation 2 right now. And I remember shutting the door and being like, this is it. Because the whole time you're watching all the Vacation movies, you're like, man, Cousin Eddie is hilarious. I wish he would get his own movie. You know what I mean? Like, you're always like, wow, that guy deserves his own movie. And then he got his own movie and it was just terrible. It was not good.
What was the island adventure part? Did they go to like Hawaii?
No, they were supposed to go on, oh gosh, they're like going on a cruise or something like that. Like, they're taking a vacation and then they get shipwrecked on an island at Christmas time. And it's Cousin Eddie and his wife and Audrey, who the original girl who played Audrey in the first Vacation movie comes back to play her again. The only time that a Griswold child actor has reprised their role, and it was in Christmas Vacation 2. So she comes back and plays Audrey again, and then it's like Eddie and his wife's their like third son and Eddie's grandfather, and then like the tour guide that was taking them to wherever they were supposed to go. And so they get shipwrecked on this island and have to make the best of Christmas on this island.
Gotcha. And then what was the other one, just the Vacation one? What was that about?
So that was basically, it was kind of was in the vein of like 21 Jump Street, where they were trying to be more meta about some of the jokes they were making. Like, they were kind of making fun of the fact that a lot of movie franchises are just reboots now. So they're like kind of soft sequels. They basically take the same storyline, but then update it for a new movie. And so Vacation was kind of making fun of that, where Rusty and his wife and their 2 kids, and Rusty's like, man, one of the best vacations I ever had when I was a kid was when we took a family road trip across the country to get to Wally World. We're going to do that again. And his wife even makes a point of it in the movie to be like, wow, so we're just going to take the same exact vacation that you and your family took 30 years ago, and that's just supposed to entertain us or something like that. So kind of meta jokes and stuff, making fun of it. But it was actually really funny. I enjoyed that one quite a bit more than I thought I was going to, at least.
Did anybody remotely famous play any of the people? Anyone that we would recognize?
Yeah, Ed Helms played Rusty Griswold. Christina Applegate played his wife. Leslie Mann, who was in Knocked Up and This Is 40, she played Audrey Griswold. And Chris Hemsworth played her husband, who's like this famous news anchor. Yeah, it's a hilarious scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's a list of people that you would think if they all got together, you would hear about it.
Yeah, and Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo, who've played Clark and Ellen. Yeah, Helen, Clark's wife, in all of the Vacation movies before, they actually come back for, it's just like a short, maybe 5 or 10 minute scene in the movie, but they actually come back and reprise their roles again as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I'll have to check those out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
very, very good.
You're right.
Well, I guess we'll kick it off to you after just the quick recap for everybody to ask the first question.
All right. So I want you to, because you've seen them all, rank them for me. Which one is your favorite? All the way down to least favorite.
Man, so probably, like I said, as I was kicking them off, Christmas Vacation is the one that's watched the most. It's probably the best one out there. That's probably followed up by National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one in the series. And then I would say probably Vegas Vacation. And then probably the new remake Vacation, then European Vacation, then Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. I'm going to say the full title every time. I'm never just going to call it Christmas Vacation 2. I want the people to know.
So that's pretty similar to my list. I would say the original up top, number 1. It's such a hard choice between that one and Christmas Vacation. Like, that's such a toss up, and I think mm-hmm. I would be swung either way just by what time of year it was if you were to randomly ask me this. But since you put Christmas Vacation first, I'm going to put the regular one up as my number 1, quickly followed by Christmas Vacation as number 2, and then Vegas Vacation is 3rd, just because that's one of the few that I really just like remember specific scenes from, and I loved that movie at a certain time in my life, and a huge part of that was when they won all of the cars at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember it was like every car I'd ever wanted all together on screen at the same time. You could throw away the rest of the movie, and that like 45 seconds of them pulling out was worth it to me.
I could definitely see a young Crocker watching that movie and then going to your mom or dad and being like, hey guys, we got to go to Vegas. I got some cars to win. It's incredibly easy.
It's so easy. Like a big yellow Hummer. And then, of course, that's when we get to the ones I haven't seen. Well, European Vacation would be after Vegas. And then I have not seen Christmas Vacation 2, Eddie's Island Adventure.
Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure.
Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure.
They put a lot of thought into that movie, at least a good 45 to 50 minutes worth of thought into that movie. You call it by its title. Show some respect.
45, 50 minutes of thought.
It's just them like shooting the breeze in the room, and they're like, man, we need another vacation movie. But Chevy Chase said he doesn't want to come back. What can we do? And they're like, Randy Quaid ain't doing nothing right now. He kind of rode the Independence Day high for a while, straight into the ground.
What are some of your favorite scenes from your favorite ones? Because to me, these movies were some of, and I don't know if this was a trend from like back in the 80s. I kind of think it might have been where there were just some really, really hilarious like scenes stitched together to form one big long movie. And instead of it, I don't know. Do you understand where I'm going at with that? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like some of these movies where you could place them at any point in between the East Coast and the West Coast and have anything happen to them at all, and they could find a way to stitch that into a hilarious little corner of each and every one of these movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably from the first movie, my favorite is when the grandmother dies.
Oh, you
And,
took mine.
and they're like, well, we don't want her to be in the car, and we gotta drop her off somewhere. So they like tie her to the roof of the car and just drive across the street. Another one from the first one is whenever Chevy Chase goes and buys that BB gun because he's like, we drove all this way, we're getting into Wally World. And John Candy, who's playing the security guard, is like, I know that that's a BB gun. And he's like, yeah, but it still hurts. And he shoots him, and he's like, ow, that really does. And he's like, yeah, take us to the rides. And he's like, okay. He just doesn't want to get shot with a BB again. So he like takes them on all the rides and stuff. I really like that one. Probably the hardest I laugh is in Vegas Vacation whenever Eddie says, like, when he burps, he does something and like the plate in his head shifts. And so him and Clark are at that like 99-cent buffet in Vegas eating, and Eddie burps and Clark looks up and just his eyes are going crazy, and he's like smacks himself in the head to put his plate back in place. That's probably the one I laugh at the hardest.
Yeah, I think two of yours were definitely on my top list, and that was the grandmother. I loved everything about that. And then when they actually show up at Wally World and it's completely empty, and then you have that sort of play out there, I love that as well. And I mentioned this in the Christmas sort of recap favorite movies podcast, but in Christmas Vacation, the scene where they slick up those metal pans or whatever it was they were using.
Oh yeah.
To sled down the mountain with. Something about that scene, I don't know what it is. I still, to this day, I find it so hilarious. And now it doesn't make any sense. Like, as a child, I could see how I could think that's so funny. But now when I watch it, I still fall on the floor laughing. Just as he goes across the road and the sparks come out, and then he ends up in the Walmart parking lot. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's so hilarious, and it takes you on such a wild ride. That's really the one that sticks out in my mind. And, also some of the interactions in Christmas Vacation with the neighbors as well, which I didn't realize this until, I'm ashamed to say, like, way too recently, that the chick from next door is the girl from Seinfeld.
Yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah. What's the name of the person she played in Seinfeld? Was it? It wasn't Lorraine, was it? Was it Lorraine?
I think it might have been Lorraine. I've actually never watched Seinfeld. And that's a bigger can of worms to open in a different episode.
I've watched some Seinfeld, but I'm definitely not like a Seinfeld fan that can catch all the Seinfeld references.
Yeah.
And I think that's a product of our age for you and I.
Yeah, it's just something like my parents, I was actually just talking to my wife about this today, love like old school humor, like the kind of humor where if somebody in Hollywood sees it in the script now, they're like, nobody's going to laugh at that. Cut that out. My dad will laugh at it. Guaranteed. He loves to see people like fall down stairs, like burp, fart. He loves all of those kind of jokes. And because Seinfeld was more of like, not necessarily like a very smart comedy, but because it didn't really have any of that stuff, it was more just like the dialogue interaction between the people. My parents never watched it, and so I never watched it growing up.
Yeah, it was definitely more thought out humor, and not necessarily just like kids getting hurt and people falling downstairs.
Yeah, and I mean, to this day, I can walk into my house back home in North Carolina and guaranteed either sports is on or ridiculousness is on, airing on MTV is on right there, because my dad just watches that non-stop. If sports isn't on, ridiculousness.
He needs to check out Tosh.0 too then as well.
See, that's the weird. Tosh.0 is too dirty. Tosh.0 is too dirty. It's such a fine line you have to go down to like make my dad enjoy a movie. Like, it's so like Big Daddy hates it because of the courtroom scene at the end. It gets too serious, doesn't like it. But The Longest Yard, loves it. Like, it's such a weird line you have to go down to please my father in a movie. It's so weird.
Big Daddy is one of those movies where it's like hilariously funny the entire time, but it's this undertone of like such sadness throughout the entire movie that it's weird how they can pull it off and make it funny. I remember watching that and just being like, these are the scenes that you just don't pay attention to because you're just here for the comedy and not the sadness that is forced along with it.
Oh, I remember, and Big Daddy was one of them, but I used to do this to a lot of movies. If I thought it was just going to be a scene of dialogue, I would just fast forward. Like, I just could care less. Some movies that were hour and a half would sometimes take me like 40 minutes to get through because I would just see them walk into the police station and I'd be like, oh, I don't care about this subplot. Fast forward, and I just wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, that's like when you're a kid playing video games and you just fast forward through all the cutscenes to get to the action, and then one day you realize, like, oh, everything that happens in between is actually kind of the reason we're here.
Yeah, that's what, like, when Big Daddy, once they took Julian away, I was like, okay, and I would stop the tape and eject it, and I'd be like, all right, watch Big Daddy for the day, and I would never finish it. I think I finished it once, and I was like, all right, we're good. I didn't ever want to watch it again.
Longest Yard, it was also a great movie there. I remember being in the theater when Longest Yard came out, and the original, you know how they blow the dude up in the jail cell or whatever?
Yeah, Chris Rock.
Yeah, in the original movie, when he reaches up and tugs on the string on the light bulb is when it happens. And I think it was like the radio or something in the remake. And I remember they put that moment in there when he gets back to his cell and he reaches up and you see his hand tug the light and then it comes on, because that wasn't in the new movie what caused the explosion, and everyone in the theater just gasped because they knew exactly what was about to happen.
Yeah, that was another one. We won like free tickets to go to an early screening or something. So my mom, me, and my dad all went to it. And as we were leaving, it was like the most jazzed up I've ever seen my dad about a movie. He loved that movie. He was like, haha, Mean Machine. Like, he loved Longest Yard. And he also loves, his favorite movie of all time is Little Man, starring Sean and Marlon Wayans. He thought it was hilarious that they put Marlon Wayans' face on a baby. And he pretended to be a baby. He was like, man, that movie's good. He's like, I laughed the whole time. He'll ask random people multiple times. He'll be like, have you ever seen Little Man? You got to watch Little Man. I'm like, Dad, that came out in 2006. It was a drop in the bucket. Nobody talks about Little Man anymore, but my father does.
Do you think that Adam Sandler and his little Happy Madison troupe could have, in their prime, I guess would be the way to ask the question, pull off a movie like any of the Lampoon Vacations? I mean, I just think the comedy style for them is a little different enough that it might actually be a challenge to do a Lampoon style movie for the Happy Madison people. But I think that maybe in their prime, they could have really pulled it off and done something cool.
Yeah, Lampoons is always a National Lampoon's movie is always weird because it's really funny, but it's always tinged with like a moral, more or less. And that's not to say like every movie is, but I mean, just the Vacation series, it's like about family and about being close to your family, like on holidays and vacations, spending the time you have with them. And so it's like, it's really funny, but it also has that kind of moral. And I think probably the closest Adam Sandler and his crew have ever gotten to doing that, weirdly enough, is probably the Grown Ups movies, because that's all about like, it's funny, but it's like, make sure you spend time with your friends when you still have them, because you don't know how far away you're going to drift or whatever. But so make sure you still spend time with them. So I think the closest they've ever gotten is Grown Ups. And I think Adam Sandler has a lot in him, but I think Hollywood's kind of pigeonholing him into, oh, just do the thing that people like. Just be like the funny adult man. You want to go on a trip? You want to go to Africa? Yeah, okay, we'll make Blended. And so he just like picks vacation spots now and then makes a movie while he's on vacation to get paid for it. So I think he can do it, but I think Hollywood's kind of pigeonholing him into just do what everyone expects you to do.
Yeah, Grown Ups was a surprisingly good movie. I did not go into that one expecting it to be so hilarious, because I think the consensus was at the time that Sandler and all of those guys were sort of dwindling down and falling off a little bit. So when Grown Ups came out, it was a surprise, a pleasant surprise. When Grown Ups 2 came out, I thought that was better than it could have been for a sequel. And, you know, they shot Blended right here in my hometown, a lot of it right here in the historic Green Street, right next to where one of our offices used to be.
Oh, wow. I did not know that, actually. I watched Blended way before I started working at where we work now. Yeah. So I had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, they go halfway across the world in that movie as well. But I'm having a hard time really thinking of any Adam Sandler movies I've seen recently, family or not, where I was like, man, this was a really, really awesome movie, you know?
Yeah, that's mostly like his Netflix movies. And I think it's people who've gotten so used to Adam Sandler doing what he does now that Hollywood has kind of been taken out of the equation. And it's just Netflix being like, hey, here's $5 million. Go make any movie you want to make. He's like, okay. And it's them just kind of like trying to figure out, how can we please people? How can we be like this crew that they want us to be, but without the restraints? Another movie that's coming to mind right now that actually made me tear up when I watched it in the theater for the first time is Click. Now, that movie,
that was a sad one too.
Yeah, that was a sad one, and with like one of those big morals about make sure you enjoy your family. Yeah, that one was a rough one to get through.
But but even still, like, I classify that as like a shining example of not good Adam Sandler.
Oh, you don't think Click's good?
I mean, yeah, it was heart-wrenching, but it wasn't like a fun movie to sit through, I didn't think.
Yeah, just at the end it gets a little too, that's where it loses my father. It's at the end when it gets a little too serious and he's like, all right, I came here to laugh at some farts. You told me in the trailer Adam Sandler was going to fart in David Hasselhoff's face. You didn't tell me he was going to fall down trying to tell his daughter how much he's missed her all these years, crying in the rain. I don't want this.
You have to set expectations. Hey, you might know the answer to this question. Does the National Lampoon branding have anything to do, I assume it does, with the National Lampoon magazine that was so big back in like the 70s and 80s? Is that sort of an umbrella that it spawned from, or how does?
Yeah, it actually came from that. I even think really John Hughes, who wrote the first movie, he had written a lot of articles about his family going to Walt Disney World. And that was where a good majority of the script from the first Vacation movie came from, was these articles that he wrote. He just compiled them into one big story and made it into Vacation. And if I'm not mistaken, he mostly wrote those for National Lampoon, which is why we get the National Lampoon's Vacation, because they were already, the articles he had written were synonymous with the National Lampoon name. So they were like, well, we're making it the movie of all of these articles you've written, so we'll put National Lampoon's Vacation so people know what they're getting into.
Gotcha. So this was a pre-existing sort of article or short or whatever going in that magazine. So that actually makes sense.
Same as another big Christmas movie, A Christmas Story, was also the guy who does the voiceover in Christmas Story, Gene Shepard, had written a lot of like short stories and articles about how he and his family would celebrate Christmas, and just like in general stuff, not even Christmas focused for a lot of it, just in general stuff about him and his family. And then he compiled all of those into one big story, which became A Christmas Story.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I never knew that either.
Yeah. And he is the guy who voices over everything as like the older Ralphie, remembering his time at Christmas. He voices that character throughout the movie.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of interesting things about a lot of Christmas movies.
Yes. I mean, anytime you have something so successful in print form and article form that it makes it over to a not just movie form, but movie form that sort of like defines generations and will be considered classics for even more generations to come. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff, you know?
Yeah, that there's a entire movie, and you might have seen it. It's called Safety Not Guaranteed. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's a terrific movie if you haven't, but it's based off of one like help wanted ad that was run that said like, I'm looking for somebody who I can time travel with or something like that. And they were like, safety not guaranteed, no pay, safety not guaranteed. And that entire movie is based off the fact of, what if somebody answered this article and we went there, but then like we didn't, like the guy was so sure of himself and was like showing off all this stuff that it makes you kind of start thinking, whoa, can this guy actually time travel? And it's these people like this film crew who goes out there to be like, oh yeah, hey man, cool article, and just film how crazy the guy is. But then the main girl, who's played by Aubrey Plaza, ends up start being like, well, I think this guy might be able to time travel. And it's a really good movie, but that was all based off of one, like a Craigslist ad or something.
No, I can't say I've ever seen it, but it's certainly going on the list.
I feel like every time we do a podcast, you come out of it with like 3 movies to add to the list.
Hey man, that's half the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, half the reason is like, I just need to use Zach for movie knowledge, but I can't ask him what movies to watch. It's just got to come up naturally.
Well, you know, if anyone were to ever come to you and say, hey, recommend a movie, would Safety Not Guaranteed come to mind ever?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It would be, I would revert right back to my father and just recommend them like the same 5 movies I've been telling people about for years.
Little Man, Longest Yard.
Yeah, I would revert right back to my father and I'd be like, have you seen Kick-Ass? Have you seen Scream? Have you seen Superbad? Have you seen Pineapple Express? You should watch those. Now, I do try and cater my movie recommendations a little closer to somebody's personality. Once I've gotten to know them a little bit, I can kind of look at a movie and be like, I think you'll like this, or like, it doesn't really look like your kind of movie. Now, of course, everyone has those surprises in them where it's like, oh, whoa, you watch the Fast and Furious movies? But it's like, it's just those little things. Usually my movie knowledge is pretty in tune with somebody's personality, and I can recommend them some good ones. But yeah, Safety Not Guaranteed would not have popped up one bit had we not been talking about that right now.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. But my problem is, which I'm sure we've figured out on this podcast already, is that it takes a lot for me to not like a movie. So
yeah,
when someone asks me, is this movie good, which is more of a more narrow question than just recommend me a movie, but my answer is usually like completely yes, it's a great movie, you need to see it, or completely no, don't recommend it at all. And I struggle with the in between. It's either all hot or all cold.
Yeah, I've found myself more recently, especially for like the big tentpole movies, like I'll find myself saying a lot of times, it's like my go-to phrase now, where somebody's like, what did you think? And I'll say, I liked it, but I had some issues. And then I'll start like talking about what my issues of the movie were. But in general, I like a good majority of stuff, which is why I have so many DVDs in my movie room right now, because I just see movies of literally any genre, any storyline, and I'm like, that looks good, I'll watch that. And it's just all these movies. I can point to 5 movies in my eyesight right now that I've had in my collection for years that I still have not watched.
Wow. That's like, I don't know. If I had a movie, if I was such a big movie guy and I owned a movie that I had not watched, then I would put it at the top of the stack, I feel like. It's like buying new clothes. Like, you don't buy new clothes and not wear them the next day.
I know. See, and that's what's so interesting about my movie collection is like they are at the top of the stack, metaphorically and physically, for the short period of time they're not sorted into the bigger collection. But then I'll just get them so much. I'll get so many movies that I'm like, okay, it's time for me to sort these all into the collection, that I will sort them all in. And then those movies that were at the top of the stack kind of get lost in the drift of everything else.
Well, yeah, I guess most people out there aren't buying like 10 movies at a pop like
Yeah,
you are.
I'll come home. Like I've walked into thrift stores before and just seen like where they have 200 something DVDs, and it's like all DVDs $1, and I'll just look at my wife and be like, we're going to be here a while, I have to look at all these. And I'll come out with like 20 movies.
Yeah, now I have movies that are, still in the cellophane, but I actually did see them a decade ago before I came into ownership of a copy. So,
Right. And so I always, uh-oh. All right, everybody. Well, yeah, this is a new segment of the Scruffy Movies podcast we're going to start doing. It's called Halftime. And basically what this means is we're just going to take a break from the conversation that we're having. We thought we just weren't hitting a lot of recent stuff, recent thoughts on stuff, and we wanted to be able to talk on all that kind of stuff. So this is a new segment called Halftime we're doing. It takes place 30 minutes into the episode, and we're just going to talk about trailers we've seen that we enjoyed, upcoming movies, any movies in theaters we've seen on DVD or Blu-ray, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of catch you guys up on our like recent movie weeks or months. And so I guess we'll just go ahead and kick that off for halftime. How about you kick us off, Crocker?
All righty. Well, as far as movies seen recently, yesterday I had the most stereotypical example ever of the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation movie, as I was at my aunt and uncle's house and the whole family was over and we were doing our sort of Christmas little shindig on that side of the family. We were watching, the NASCAR movie with Will Ferrell.
Talladega Nights.
That's what was on, and the kids started to get there, and everything. And then one of my aunts or uncles was like, we need to change this to something that's a little bit more appropriate for everybody. And at the top of the pre-recorded list on the TV, like DVR, was National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. So I actually had that playing in the background of my family Christmas gathering. And I just thought that was the most stereotypical thing ever, and certainly something that we've talked about on the podcast before. Now, as far as upcoming stuff and trailers, two of the big ones for me are the Airbender, the last Airbender series that is coming together. Haven't seen a trailer on that yet, but the news has at least broken that they are putting that together. And I believe that one's going to be an exclusive to either Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or one of those.
Netflix.
Yeah. Now, I was a huge fan of the original Last Airbender animated series. They also made, I believe it was called Legends of Korra spinoff, which was very good according to people that have seen it. I have not actually taken the time to go back and rewatch that one, though. And then, of course, the movie that came out that everybody seemed to dislike, but I didn't think was that terrible. As usual, as long as I halfway enjoyed it, I recommend it. I think the big problem with it is that people just did not like the actor they chose to actually be Aang, the star character.
Yeah, I think that's The Last Airbender is one of those movies, the same as Dragon Ball Evolution, where I've never really watched any of the episodes, but I know enough about the lore to just from like coming into contact with my friends who were fans of that series to be able to watch those movies and be like, oh, well, that's wrong, isn't it? And then my friend who is a big fan will be sitting there staring at the screen angrily, and they're like, yep, that's wrong.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I loved that series so much. And we've talked about this numerous times about other franchises before. But, I mean, they have a world that all of this takes place in. There is an actual map of the realm and where all the different islands are and all the different tribes and all the different people. And it's all sort of based loosely upon, real life, actual Asian cultures that are spread across from Japan to China to, the Philippines to the Arctic and all of that. So it's really, really surprisingly deep for what most people just wrote off as an animated, kids show. But
Right.
There is actually a deeper universe happening sort of behind the scenes. And then the next biggest thing that I'm excited about, which again, I definitely don't think there's a trailer for yet, but that is that The Mandalorian is, we're getting a Star Wars TV show, and Happy, Jeff, what's his last name?
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau, that's it, is going to be heading that up, which is super exciting. And anything new Star Wars, like we've talked about before, always goes to the top of the list as most exciting things. And then, of course, I'm sure on your own personal list, there was a trailer drop just a couple of days ago that I'm very excited about, and I'll let you get to that one.
Yes, actually, I wrote down a few things on my list to remember to talk about because I get so excited about one thing, I've kind of glazed over everything else. Top of the list says Avengers Endgame. So you
Yep.
are 100% correct in assuming that that is something I am very excited for. I knew the trailer was dropping on Friday. We were coming into work a little late on Friday because we were having a team building event there. So I was rolling in probably about 8:20 or so. And then I have my phone set up on my little hands-free thing that's just connected to one of my air vents in my car. I'm driving to work. I get probably where I'm about 5 minutes away from work. And then my group chat with all of my friends in it dings. And my one friend just says Avengers Endgame. And then my next friend dings and he said like, oh, holy crap, I just watched it. And I was like, oh my God. So I sped the rest of the 5 minutes to work. I think I went like 10 miles above the speed limit the whole time I was at work. Pulled up to work, didn't even get out, pulled up to work, took my phone off of my hands-free device, and just pulled the trailer up immediately, started watching it. And I just sat in my car for 2 minutes, having just pulled in. Didn't say hey to anybody, didn't tell like anybody what I was doing, just pulled up, parked my car, and started watching the trailer. And it's one of those movies where I'm glad that they didn't really give us a lot because it's the same as Infinity War. They didn't show us anything really of like what the plot was going to be we just knew that it was them trying to stop Thanos. And so this kind of goes the same for Endgame. It was just a lot of action shots or like people kind of looking sad and downtrodden. And they didn't really show us anything of what the movie's going to be, other than the fact that we see that they're on some kind of mission where Steve's like, I know this is going to work. And then Ant-Man is going to be in it. Other than that, they have not showed us like anything from the movie. And that actually makes me really excited because I honestly don't know what to expect.
Well, it's the first trailer to drop, and usually the very initial trailers are more teaser style than narrative.
Right.
Because quite often, which I'm sure is not the case here, but quite often this early in the process, there's still some adjustments and things that could happen, and they don't want to release a trailer that ultimately ends up looking like they're going in a direction they don't end up taking the film. I think this has probably been planned out long enough in advance. That's not the case.
Well,
but
Marvel
I sort of expected it to be more teasery than anything.
Right. And that's exactly what we got. And Marvel has also kind of become famous, at least from the Infinity War trailer, of misleading us and having us see things in the trailer where they're like, they're going to think this about this. And then we do. And they're like, good, that's exactly what I wanted you to think. And then it ends up like not being in the trailer, not being in the movie at all. Like I remember in the Infinity War trailer, Bruce Banner is standing next to a Hulkbuster hand. And people are like, whoa, oh my God, Bruce is going to be in the Hulkbuster. But then we see them all like kind of running towards the camera when they're in Wakanda and Hulk is out. Hulk is in Wakanda. And they're like, oh my God, Bruce is going to be in the Hulkbuster. Hulk's going to bust out. And then he's going to start fighting as the Hulk. Awesome. And then that didn't happen at all. So the whole movie, I'm waiting for Hulk to bust out. Does not happen one time in that movie. So they're also kind of good at misleading us from a little bit of plot trailers too, and making us think one thing when really they're doing something else entirely. But yes, very excited about that. Also really excited about Into the Spider-Verse, which is coming out soon. It has been getting amazing reviews. The last time I checked, it still had a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that was from like 60 or 70 reviewers at that point. So I mean, it's coming out and it's doing like gangbusters.
Yeah, I was mind blown when you sent me the link to Rotten Tomatoes, and it was like 99.9 for both sides. It's like, oh man, this, maybe I need to give this a little bit more credit than I have.
Yeah, and that's a movie I'm really excited for. People are giving it praise for being a really good story, but also just having like a new look and feel to it that we haven't seen in a superhero movie before. So I'm also really excited for that. And then just kind of wrapping everything up, Aquaman and Bumblebee, which are two movies whose franchises have been plagued with bad sequels, are actually getting amazing reviews themselves. So I am super excited for those too.
Is Aquaman now? I heard for a little while that Aquaman was not looking good.
The only thing I've been seeing is positives, and people are just raving about it. It opened to the same numbers in China that Captain America Civil War did when it opened back in 2016.
Oh wow, okay.
So I mean, it's doing really well, and I've been hearing good things about it. And Bumblebee, the new Transformers spin-off prequel movie, reviews started dropping, and like every review I saw were people just going like, wow, so this is what you get when you take Michael Bay out of Transformers. And it has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes right now too.
Oh, so that's good then. Yeah.
Yeah, people are saying it is like the 80s cartoon come to life, and so I am very excited about that.
Well, I think that's one element they missed a little bit from from all of the other Transformer movies is that, when you make it such a huge action movie, you miss the street level stuff, which is really kind of what it was kind of all about. And really more or less what this one seems to be more focused on, at least from a perspective.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that it doesn't just seem like humans are there to have the audiences go like, oh, look, a human, I can connect with them. Like the humans are actually there for a reason. A lot of people are comparing it to like 1980s ambulance stuff. So like the Goonies and E.T. and like all that kind of stuff. They're saying it has that same type of feel to it.
Man, that's so popular now.
Yeah, like
It
the
really
80s
is.
revival stuff.
But for a good reason. We've gotten a lot of really awesome stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to follow a trend into the ground until it's not fresh and new anymore, as evidenced by my still going to see every DC comic book movie that comes out, and I watched the trailer for Transformers 5 going, man, the movie's gonna suck. And guess who was there opening night?
Yep.
So I'm really excited that those movies are now starting to get some better recognition and better reviews. I'm glad that they've seemed to find what the problem was having the bad directors on the movies, and eradicated that problem by taking them out. And then now we can see what like other people can do with the franchises, and it's going well.
So far, I mean, what's the most recent DC movie to actually hit theaters?
Justice League last November.
Oh yeah, and that one didn't do so hot.
No, that one was not very well received.
So we're still on the upswing then. So we're still yet to see the the payoff for that director switch.
Yeah, this is like Aquaman will be the first movie to come out after they've been like, okay, Zack Snyder, we've given you 3 chances, and right now you are 0 for 3, so we're taking you off. And so this will be the first one we see like a Zack Snyder-less DC movie, where the other 2 to come out have been Suicide Squad, which was kind of tempered. The studio edited it a lot because of the bad reception Batman versus Superman got. And then Wonder Woman, which of course was received extremely well. Everybody thought, great, now we're back on track. This is where we want to go with DC. And then Justice League came out and kind of stopped the train once again. So they were like, okay, the one thing that's in common with all of our movies that do bad is this man. So he's gone. Now let's see what we can do. And so far, Aquaman has been getting great reviews from it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's really the first one that I've like seen the trailer for, the DC movie, should I say, and been like, man, I got to put this one at the catch in theaters list.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. Very excited. That and Into the Spider-Verse, Bumblebee, all these movies coming out over the next couple months, over the next month, because we're in December right now. Very excited.
God, it is that time of year, that end of year movie push.
Yep. And speaking of end of year, also at end of year is Christmas, and that takes us right back into Christmas Vacation. Great segue, Zach. Time back in from halftime.
Yes. Yeah, we got a little carried away there.
That's fine. That's what halftime's for.
Awesome. So I think you had an idea here for the last bit of the show.
Yes. So this, I just was curious. It kind of relates to vacations and vacation stuff. Before we get into our quick pitch, what is the best vacation you have ever been on in real life?
The best vacation I've ever been on in real life. would probably be when, and I have no idea how old I was, but it had to have been late middle school, early high school. We went to Mexico, and we stayed in Cancun, which is like one of the sort of the touristy trap best places to stay in Mexico when everybody goes to Mexico. But what made it the best trip is because we spent like very little time actually in Cancun. We went inland and checked out a lot of the old ruins. I can't remember if it was Inca or Mayan ruins that we were checking out, but like a lot of the pyramids. And then they had a lot of the natives playing like the old timey games, the old fashioned games from way back in the day. And we also went to see all of the grottos where you could like snorkel through all of these kind of caverns. And it was really awesome. There's actually a name for that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But I'm also a scuba diver, and I do that with my family. So we got in some good scuba diving down there. And then, of course, just the stereotypical, party in Mexico type of deal as well. So I think that was probably the best vacation I've ever been on, just because I got to see some really awesome stuff, like old ruins, and really hang out with the family. And like I said, it was like late middle school, early high school. So I was not quite to the point where when I went on vacations, I just pieced out from my family and said, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'll catch you back for dinner, which is pretty much, what happens when you get to where you can go and do and see and explore by yourself. So it was sort of a family vacation moment where we all traveled as a pack in this foreign land where we didn't understand the language and we didn't use their money. And we were just there absorbing awesome, cool things all around us. How about you?
Well, we actually took a trip, I think probably 2014 now, when I was still in college with a bunch of my buddies from college. I actually have a friend whose family is kind of rich. So his grandparents actually own a house on the beach on Myrtle Beach. Like, it's on the beach. You take a step off the porch, you're at the beach. And we just went down there, and it was like 3 days full of, like, we watched movies, we watched Deep Blue Sea and Jaws, and hung out, and we went out and like had we went to Ryan's Buffet like 2 or 3 times and just ate giant buffet meals and just kind of hung out the whole time. And it was a lot of fun. We hung out. They had a pool and a jacuzzi, and there was a hotel like 2 houses down that we would just go over and go to their hot tub in. So it was just a lot of fun, just being able to hang out with people and all that stuff. It was just a good time all around. But now I am very excited to jump into Quick Pitch, because I don't know what at all you have prepared for what you would like to see a new vacation movie be this time.
So it's hard. I have 2. I had to do 2. I wanted to do 1, but the one that I really want to happen, I'm afraid, is too close to Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. Because really, when I'm thinking about like, what do I want to see? And I'm thinking in terms of like the classic gang as much as possible, Chevy Chase, no spinoff, like, I think Cousin Eddie's actually dead now, but whatever. Like, I kind of want this.
He's in Canada. He ran to Canada for like tax evasion or something. So for the government not to arrest him, he lives in Canada now.
Oh, word. Okay. Well, that's awesome. And maybe we'll be able to get him back.
No, he's super weird dude now. Super weird dude.
Okay. Well, we'll write him off. But okay, well, then he's just lost on the other island. But I just can't get the scene, and I don't know if you ever saw this, but when the Brady Bunch goes to Hawaii.
Yes.
Is all I can think about when I think of what Christmas Vacation movie do I want to see. And then immediately after Brady Bunch goes to Hawaii, I think of the old Jeff Foxworthy joke of the Clampets go to Maui, and it all just works out so well. I want there to be a classic like airplane style scene, like Airplane the movie style scenes when they're flying all the way over to Hawaii, And I love the idea, like from the Brady Bunch, which you could do this with. They did it with a tiki, but if you wanted to maybe set one of these movies in like New Orleans or something like that, you could do voodoo, where you actually get like some type of like island curse involved or something along those lines. Again, I really hope I'm not doing exactly what Cousin Eddie did here in his spinoff.
No, you're good.
Yeah. To me, I think that, and also speaking of the Clampetts, do you remember in the Beverly Hillbillies movie that came out, there was that scene where all the Clampetts were on the airplane. They had them fly in from, North Carolina to LA or to Hollywood, and they were playing, and, someone had the spoons and the washboard and the jug and all that as the instruments. I could just see a scene like that unfolding with half of the plane being consumed by this one family,
Yeah.
So half of the, or not half, but a huge chunk of the movie would be just them simply getting there. And then when they get there, of course, everything falls apart and the reservations don't work out, or they wind up, on multiple islands or something crazy. I would love to see some type of a curse get brought into it, because I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And that's sort of one of my ideas. But if that is too similar to a theme that has already been done, I would like to see just an actual like family reunion style, because now we are enough years have passed where we have the standalone vacation movie with Rusty and his family, and we assume that the daughter has her own family now, and Cousin Eddie's kids, have their own family and everything else. So I would say that, you sort of double down on the fact that time has actually gone by and that people in real life are older now and everything else. And you do a family reunion style where maybe it's shot as a series of multiple different road trips. So you have like Rusty's family coming in from, like New England or something, and then the sister's family coming in from another direction, and then Chevy Chase and his wife are, maybe empty nesters now, and just like what happens when it's just them two, which we, really don't get to see very often. And then you've got all the other family that could be coming in as well. And then kind of what that looks like as they all start to converge upon one another, at this big family reunion style thing. And those were my thoughts. So what do you think? What do you think about my thoughts?
I love that family reunion one. That sounds like a great movie, because I think you could even kind of make a catalyst for the movie be like Rusty and Audrey are basically, they didn't want to come to the family reunion, whatever, like they're too old now, they're not coming, whatever. But then Chevy Chase, Clark Griswold, is like, well, whoever comes gets my 1978 Mint Corvette. Whoever gets to the family reunion first gets it. And so they're like, all right, everybody pack up, let's go. And so it's them in competing road trips to try and get to the family reunion first.
Rat race
and rat race style. I also think it would be hilarious to see that without their children, Clark and Ellen are just having like a nice breeze through the country, like cut back to them every once in a while, and they're just like enjoying some time out by the lake, and they're like, wow, how serene. And then it like immediately cuts to Rusty or Audrey, and they're driving in their cars like, ah. I think that would be a great vacation movie.
And I think if it's done correctly, and it's as hilarious as it needs to be, it could be a good passing of the torch movie as well, even though I know they've already tried to kind of do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that movie would be really, really, really good. So my pitch is very different than that. I was like, in my head when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, what are some vacations they haven't taken that like everybody takes? And the first one to come to my head was like beach vacation. So kind of a little bit off of your idea, like them going to Maui and stuff like that. But then it came to my head, and I got kind of caught up with it, is cruise. And I would love to see the Griswolds go on a cruise, except when they are in international waters, their boat is taken by pirates. The only person to escape everyone being kidnapped is Rusty Griswold, played again by Ed Helms. And so he is in a diehard John McClane type situation, going through all these little caverns in the cruise ship, having to defeat these pirates to save his family. And I just think that would be hilarious to see Ed Helms as like the Bruce Willis inside man trying to save his family on this cruise ship. And I don't know why, but that just stuck with me. I would love to see maybe even him and Clark at first. Him and Chevy Chase are both like the inside man. And then halfway through the movie, Chevy Chase gets kidnapped. He's found. And so he gets taken with the rest of like the hostages, and it's up to Rusty to like try and save them. I just think Ed Helms would do really good in that situation of being like the exasperated kind of guy who's not ready for this, but has to do something about it. And I think it would be good. It would be cool to see these characters in like a different situation that we haven't seen before. And I just think that a cruise would be a good kind of set piece for that, where they can't leave and they're all just kind of secluded in one area together. And it's him trying to save his family.
Yeah, I don't feel as bad for doing the Hawaii thing if you're doubling down on the cruise.
Oh, I'm doubling down on it. Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure gave us the themes. We are taking them and running with them straight into a new movie.
You know, the only other one I can think of, the only other like common vacation people take would actually be like going to the slopes to snowboard and ski, where you stay at the, you know, in a lodge at the bottom of the mountain or in a villa on the side of the hill. Mm-hmm. And then you could have a lot of comedy that your father would like, where people are crashing themselves and running into trees. And
it'd be one of his favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
It'd be one of his favorites.
So one last fun fact. I know we're getting towards the end here. One last thing that I wanted to throw out there, because I had this on my notes and we hadn't gotten to it yet, is that Rusty from Christmas Vacation is actually Leonard from Big Bang.
Yeah, Johnny Galecki.
Blew my mind. Never knew that. I learned this yesterday.
The only Rusty, I think, in fact, I haven't seen in any other things besides like the vacation movie he's in, is the Rusty from European Vacation. Every other Rusty I've seen in like a million other things.
Yeah, I think he was a little brat in European Vacation anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was kind of, and that's another funny thing is like how they just don't care. Rusty in European Vacation's clearly like 15. And then when we see him in Christmas Vacation, he's like 11 or 12.
Yeah. Which that's good though, because that makes our movies that we're pitching more of a possibility if they just have complete disregard for stuff like that.
And there's actually a really funny scene in Vacation where he's looking back through all of the vacations they've taken, and it's all of the other children that have played them, and he's like, man, my family, and it's like all of these random people in this picture. It's really funny.
That's hilarious.
Well, I think we've about run our course on the vacation movies. Run our course straight into the new Vacation Cruise that's coming out in 2020 by John Crocker and Zach Wallace. And so we hope you guys had fun. We're coming at you again next week with another Christmas episode, something that we're both very excited about. I know I am extremely excited about it. And then something really special coming out for you guys on Christmas Eve that I'm even more excited for. What did you say?
I'm so pumped.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I thought you gave it away just there. I just heard like the beginning of it, and I was like, did he just say what it is? I was like, I wanted it to be a surprise, which is why I haven't mentioned what it is in like the last 3 weeks.
I'll play it by the rules, Zach.
But very excited for next week. Very, very, very excited for our Christmas Eve episode, which will be coming out soon. We hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please follow us on Instagram at Scruffy Movies.
And Crockalicious.
And please like, follow, subscribe. I don't think I've said that in a while, so let's put one in here so we have one every couple of episodes. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.